Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mohammed Satti, CEO IT Butler, is today with another topic which is very important for any IT operation. Since we are talking about the best practices and the world-known frameworks which actually help a lot for IT people. IT is a very, a kind of soft technology, but when it comes to manage, it has a lot of headaches. And sometimes I saw people, their faces, their mindset, they feel that probably it is the hardest and hardest part to manage. But if we follow the rule set and if we follow the framework and if we follow the best practices, it will be very smooth and the resilient IT system can be established. My today topic is about the business continuity management, BCM, and it's more related to IT, business continuity management. It's a wide subject for any services, any kind of public private service where the continuation is always a question mark. But in IT system, it is such a system that IT is becoming a part of our life. It's a lifestyle rather than a service. Since the social media, email systems, web presence, websites, online music, online, all the services, even food services, traveling services, all of those services which we see around is basically an IT service. And we are very happy, we are very lucky to be the part of the IT community where we are serving globally, and it's a borderless, ubiquitous service which we are providing. Now for that we have a lot of challenges. A, the quality of service, and B, the continuation of service. And when it comes to continuation of service, IT business continuity management comes first. And how it works and how we can manage our IT continuation is my today topic. Under this I will speak about ISO 22301, and the version which I am talking is 2012. Now every ISO has some predecessor or history which I feel that I should also share with you guys. That BCM, which is currently ISO 22301, was originally set up by BSI, British Standard Institution. A lot of contribution they made worldwide, but that was initially they set up PAS 55 and PAS 77, PAS 55 and PAS 77. PAS stand for Publicly Available Specification. And that was the initial draft which was set by BSI, and then based on these PAS 55-77, further code of practices including security, resumption, RTO, RPO is being set, and the standard which they published was BS 25999, 25999. And that standard was first standard for business continuity management. Later on, the same code of practices with some addition is taken by International Standard Organization and then published the document of ISO 22301. In my presentation, look at the left hand side, three words. The first is BIA, the second is RTO, and third one is RPO. These are three pillars for setting up the framework or the system for business continuity management. Ladies and gentlemen, the first is to consider the business impact analysis, which means that how the outage or disruption or completely disappearance of your service will create an impact based on the dollar value versus reputation, effectiveness, efficiency, market competitiveness, all of those to be considered before we start investing on business continuity management and its impacts. The further to RTO is basically recovery time objective, which means how long it will take if the service is down to recover, time for recovery. And as we know that today big IT system is supporting online shopping marts, online business platforms such as Amazon, eBay, Alibaba and many more, and we can see that lot of food delivery and then aviation industry, traveling, hoteling, you name it, IT become a lifestyle. People want to do most businesses through online, and they want that this should be instantly available with the best access level, effectiveness, and it's all the easy to use kind of platform for IT. Now definitely Amazon, eBay, Alibaba, these are 3-4 major e-shops. They cannot afford a second that their service should not be available any part of the world, irrespective where, how and how much they are gaining from each part of the world. But at the end of the day, we can also see that their continuation is based on reputation as well as the financial impact. But look at the Googles, it is available everywhere, and in my experience I never saw Google is not available. They have multiple data centers, they have multiple presence, they have multiple DNSs, they have multiple arrangement. But again, everyone is not Google. So the investment which Google made may not be possible for an organization who is running in a certain area, city or even a country. So these are all the factors which we have to consider when we devise any plan for business continuity management. So as soon we start doing this business continuity management, we assume that IT services are running. We assume that IT services running through a data center which has all the available resources such as mains power supply, powerhouses, UPSs, diesel generators, and definitely people, then definitely processes and technologies all established. So, but from here onward, when we try to do the business continuity management, we have to include and exclude, again based on the people, process and technology. So for example, if you ask me to establish a strategy or a roadmap for business continuity management, my first question would be to what should be included and what should be excluded. Principally, and it's a practice generally, people, non-IT staff of XYZ company can be excluded. And then process-wise, business process is a business people which basically runs all the time, may not be affecting your business in your data centers, but as a whole. And then external relationship with others, government processes, and then technology-wise, all the external hardware and software, such as other telecom equipment and external systems. So you have to bifurcate the criticality of the systems which you primarily responsible to look after in order to manage your continuation of service. So for example, you have to carry out the gap analysis. Gap analysis is such a practice that any third party, any experienced consulting firm can be hired to come and do the gap analysis. This is a first step for achieving any new goals within an organization. Then main site in ABC city. I will not mention any city just to make sure that we are open for everyone. And then you have to have disaster, DR mean disaster recovery site in XYZ city. So you should have a main operation, main data center in ABC city, and you should have a DR site of another city which is XYZ. The best practices is that these two cities should ideally separated in distance wise around 375 to 400 kilometers. But when the country itself is only 50 kilometers, so that does not apply, because maybe the country is not permitting to send the data out. They want that the data should remain and operation should remain in their country. So the country whose size is 50 or 60 kilometer may not apply, but principally the DR site and main site should have a reasonable distance. When we say 300 to 400 kilometer, basically we are considering natural disasters such as earthquake, flood, or any natural type of lightning, so that the other city should remain live. And then we have to look at people, process, and technology. We look at the documentation process and implementation and final audit, and that will be the roadmap to successful achievement of 22301 certification. Now, stages of BCM is very important, and you will be very interested to know that how many stages generally we consider. Again, thanks to BSI, I'm taking their slide in here in my presentation, because I found one of the best from their manuals. So A, to understand your business. As I said, every business has its own criticality, every business has its own clientele base, every business has its own way forward. I mean, there is no general formula which can apply, but it depends on the business which you are in. So that's the call. First thing, understand your business. Number two, business continuity strategies. Business continuity strategies mean that you have to consider everything, including the BIA, business impact analysis, including the RTO, RPO, as I mentioned, time to recover, time objectives and stuff. So that you should plan your strategy accordingly, because when you talk about the strategy, it will end up with the financial impacts. It will end up with some investment. And that has to be rationalized with the business, that if we do this one, this much we can save, but if we will not do this one, this much we will lose. But if you invest too much and the gain is less, I think that's not the right strategy. Develop and implement business continuity response, that's the plan. And then the complete program management should start. And number 4 is building and embedding a continuity culture. Building and embedding a continuity culture mean that has to be considered physically, tangibly, intangibly, all those factors to be considered. And maintenance and audit, and definitely that cycle will come, continuous cycle. But for the new, these 5 stages are necessary. Now, without DR site, you have, building DR site itself may not be financially possible for an organization, but they can consider another service provider over there. They can have a racks, or they can have a cages, or they can have a part of data centers. They can go through a partnership model with another city, and so on. All this is based on your strategy. Now, when we talk about the gap analysis, let me also share you our experience that determining the current status of business continuous management at company XYZ, then we need to analyze business impact analysis, BIA, and then we have a risk assessment of BCM sites. Risk assessment will tell you exactly the status and their values in terms of confidentiality, integrity, availability, asset value, and then probability of tampering or compromising of confidentiality, integrity, availability, and assets. So based on that special formula, which risk assessment always taken place, you can have something in terms of numbers, and based on that numbers and based on BIA, you have to assess your current RTO, RPO and your future RTO, RPO. Current mean without DR site, your outage time is this much. If you establish the DR site, then there are a number of options. It means, phrase out like this, n+1, which means that whatever the data center you have, city ABC, you create the similar data center in XYZ. And again, data center then have tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. It is all investment. So you have to justify your investment, that whether you want n+1, n+2 strategy, whether you need hot side, whether you need cool side or cold side, that is all. Then you can see yourself how much RTO, RPO you can improve for an organization. And it's always a business decision from the business leader to spend more on to remote side or DR side. Ladies and gentlemen, I can give you an example that when we travel from point A to B, Europe to America to Australia, or long haul, back haul aircraft, and we can see that the maximum engine which we found on the aircraft is 4, 2 on each side, and probably they are working as a pair, 2 working and 2 is just relaxing and then comes again 2. But I never saw a commercial plane with a 6 engine. I think it is possible. The problem is that if you run 6 engines, the cost of flying will be such a high that it will not be able to amortize on the competitive market. So somehow you have to trade off that, okay, 4 engine is enough and 2 engine is also enough. 1 engine is very risky. So you see a plane, everybody have a taste of flying and traveling from point A to B, and people who travels a lot, such as traveling from Australia to London or London to New York, and probably 8 to 14 hour flight, definitely you see that single engine will not work for, and 2 engines are still good, but the 4 engine one is more comfortable and it has a best operation and stuff like that. But 6 engine can further reduce the risk of failure. However, the cost of operation will be disproportional to the affordability of the ticketing which common people can ever buy. So that's the one example I would like to share with you. The process and procedures being practiced at XYZ company, and gap analysis report will come. Now I'll give you a little snapshot of the gap analysis so that you can understand what is the gap analysis. So gap analysis has again 5 phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. It will define like this. For example, the first one, the business continuity planning, document control and revision, not maintained as per the shared BCP. Whatever the document was shared from any customer, we write that the status is very high and it required 90 more days to correct those documents. Similarly, emergency damage assessment evaluation, then team roles and responsibility, then business impact analysis department, and then emergency response, all of those, and then recommendation, and then timeline. And based on that, the budgeting can be calculated. So this is what the gap analysis is. If you wish to go to establish your business continuity management, I think more or less the same way you will go for it. For example, PAS, publicly available specification 56, 77 are the paper where you evaluate the things. Then you add business impact analysis with BIA. Then you add risk assessment, which is called RA. Then you have IT recovery for DR side, and then you have to have full plan, which is BCM. Based on the BCM or BCP, BCM, business continuity management, BCP means business continuity plan. Now phases of BCP, business continuity plan, is project management and initialization. As you know that project management is always important because every project needs management. When we talk about the management, A, the resources, B, the timeline, C, the budget, and there are many other facets which one can consider as a one project. And then business impact analysis, as I said, that we have to study your business and make sure that impact is properly rationalized with the requirement and with the budget as well. And the recovery strategy, and then plan and design and development, implementation, testing and maintenance. So definitely it required 2 sides, main side and DR side, and then testing between both sides. Now business continuity approach is very important to share with you. There are the consideration that, for example, one of the consideration is when you develop anything like BCM, natural disaster, flood, hurricanes and earthquake. These are commonly seen, and a different part of the world has a different level of threats and natural disaster. There are some earthquake lining, there are some under geo kind of complexity that we have to consider, and also we can see that some of the part of the world has a more earthquake than the other part. Flood itself is also related to the waters levels and the physical location of the country. Hurricanes is also, these are the natural disaster, and nobody knows. You can estimate through a scientific manners, but at the end of the day, it is more natural and almost unknown. Natural disaster, damage, loss of building, right? And then we have pandemic or epidemic, like such as influenza, avian flu, H1N1. That creates or that losses the personnel, HR, which is very important for you. So loss of HR is this one. And then terrorist threats, cyber attacks and outages. That production system, communication system and financial system can be turned down. It's a loss of systems. Then you have a supplier, single source of supplier, supply chain disruption, loss of supplier. These are potential threats and vulnerability. Whenever you devise, you plan, you strategize, you put some investment, you have to align and realign your potential threats and vulnerabilities so that your business continuity plan look like more practical rather than just a theoretical. And it should be supported by a financial backup as well as impact analysis. Now, look at the business continuity management as a subject, that here is a timeline and here is the activity. So there are 3 activities has been defined. This means disaster, boom. And then emergency response plan is required. Then crisis management team and communication plan is required, that if this will happen, who do what responsibility, who will contact whom, who will speak about this disaster if it is only organizational disaster. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, media is one of the arm which actually connects everyone, but it can create a lot of trouble as well. So organization should define that who will speak to media, who will speak to shareholder, who will speak to the other parties. That is called crisis management team. And then business recovery, which is more technical stuff, and it is not as challenging as crisis management and emergency response plan. Now look at the action, that if you have all of 3 predefined roles and responsibility, people understand their roles in case of any major disaster, people have connected or people have their contact details with each other and can be tracked or can be contacted immediately, and emergency response plan is kick-started, and then crisis management team started meeting, and then business planning will come. Initially, you see, they will start from the negative, because when disaster comes, it has mostly all of a sudden. There is no, there may be some precursors, but generally it is not known. So when you handle with unknown, definitely your efficiency initially will be very low. As soon you have a plan and you started your activities as a team, and here you see the 2 teams are working together. One is emergency response team, another is crisis management team. They come up and they started their activity, and sooner you see they reach to the point A where a successful outcome can be seen. Here is the RTO, RPO questions comes when you start like this. Now business continuity plan, emergency response plan, crisis management plan, business recovery, disaster recovery. These are the main components of any business continuity plan. When we talk about the emergency response plan, it means initial control of emergency situation. Is this situation created by natural disaster, or it's a man-made disaster, or it is disaster of the city and you are the part of that city, or the disaster of the country and you are a part of that country. So that is called initial control emergency. And then blue light services such as safeguarding human life. The first and foremost responsibility of every one of us is to save the human life. And then stabilizing security, damage assessment and so on. Then second one is crisis management. These are the people, a little wise people, senior level people. They have the strategic direction and policies issue when it comes to in their account, that how they will handle the emergency. Crisis communication, internal and external, media. As I mentioned to you, that without media we cannot live in this life, but media drives us most of the time. So the decision to talk to the media should be the part of the policy of the crisis management head. And the outward facing liaison stakeholders user, for example, is a public listed company and they are in trouble, so they should talk in very responsible manner so that their share market should remain intact and it should not fall in a situation that it is not recoverable financially. So you have physical disaster and then you have a financial disaster which one should take care of it. Coordination of services recovery efforts, and then business recovery itself is the third one, which has phases recovery of business critical processes, and disaster recovery means recovery of infrastructure and services and returning to business as normal. Now, business impact analysis is based on two things, and that we must understand that if business continuity and disaster recovery planning is there, not all application and data are equal. So different application and different data has a different value or different impacts of the outage. And the right situation is to trade off between the cost of ensuring business continuous and the cost of the failure, as I mentioned to you. Here we have a 3 example. Ladies and gentlemen, look, level of sophistication, that how difficult it is to resume, and impact of outage. So these are 2 colors you can see, and I have given you the cost versus the time to recover. Cost versus time to recover. The first one is CRM, customer relationship management, is an application where you maintain the database of your customer and their communication, their purchase order, their delivery notes, their invoices and all those things, and their contact details. So you see that the cost is pretty high, and recovery time is, if you look at the time, it is faster because you need to establish first the CRM portal as your priority so that customer should not suffer. The second one is email. Of course, you see that the cost is less because the cost is this much. Cost is vertical. Cost is less, but again time is a bit high. And then third one is HIMS, hospital information, just an example. And here you see cost is very minimum, however reception time is high. So you saw that here we have high cost and less time. Here we have low cost, low time, and here we have low cost, here we have low cost, medium time. Here we have low cost and high time. You see that this relationship for each of your service catalog should be maintained and preempt that anything can happen and how we will resume and in which order we will resume, and the investment will be made based on the business impact analysis and a calculation such as this one. Now the point comes that when we have impact analysis, there are 2 question marks. A, recovery point objective, which means disaster event occurred or happened. To see the lost backup of the data, then you can imagine that how much loss is available, will impact or will create. Lost data mean your backup end up by, let's say, midnight, 1 o'clock, and this disaster happened at 1 o'clock daytime, which means 12 hours, whatever the data was processed is always gone. So how we can recover that data, and what is the investment which we can make in order to have recovery point objective near to 0. That means that whatever the data you receive at the main data center, you should have a proper data replication site at the DR, which means that every bit of data which is coming to your main site is also duplicated to another site which is distance as far as 300 kilometers. That's called your RPO is near to 0. And the second one is RTO, which means recovery time objective. Disaster happens to recover the system and data from the backup. So you see here that RPO is this one. Event occurs here. Last backup, either if you are only having 1 backup per day, then it could have 1 hour to 20 hours outage, loss of data. Then let's say your data is available, then restored system and data, and then manual process will kick off. Then RTO will be question mark, that recover lost data, RPO to event, which is this to this time, and then enter the manual process of the data, and then enter the lost data if you have another way to bring the data which was from the backup to the event. Backup to event, for example, last night 1 o'clock to this morning 1 o'clock, you can bring that data as an incremental, you add the data and your operation will be normal. So playing between RPO, RTO, you have to keep my example of those aircraft, commercial aircraft, that why they restrict to have 4 engines, can they be at 6 engine, because of the cost of operation. Here in some organization such as eBay, Amazon, Alibaba, they can have RPO, RTO near zero, but in a common organization it will be very over investment to have this one. But again, it's not me to make a decision, it's a business decision which will be taken by customer, which will be taken by the business management people. So all of a sudden, if you look at the complete nutshell of business continuity management, BIA, RTO and RPO are 3 pillars. And ladies and gentlemen, I wish to take your question, but since it is my recorded lecture and it will be available on our portal, and I would request you to give me your comments, send me your questions. I will be available online, I will be available offline, any mean of communication. It will be honored to have you guys on our portal, and I look forward to receive your comments. And if the comments will come positive, I promise you that I have many other topics to continue on online. Thank you so much and see you next time.